Hi everyone and welcome to the Inverted Fullback. My name is Glenn Preston and this is a tactical analysis session on how to press in the modern 4-2-3-1. Within this video I'm going to look at concepts such as controlling the opposition into half a pitch, how you prevent them escaping and their exit routes out. We're going to look at trapping individual weak links and we're going to look at controlling certain passing lanes, how to set traps through passing lanes. We'll offer 3 or 4 quite advanced concepts and solutions, so stick around and I hope you enjoy the video. Don't forget to subscribe and leave any comments in the feedback below. So the first thing I want you to consider is your engagement line. Where are you going to take the battle to your opposition? In this example I'm showing it's on the first pass. As soon as the goalkeeper plays the pass, our 9 is engaging. But with rule changes now that allow players to play within inside the penalty box, we might want to consider a little bit of a different approach. Now personally, from an own preference point of view, I prefer to engage on the edge of the 18-yard box. But it's always dependent on the opposition and the qualities that I perceive that they have, or weaknesses that I perceive that they have. But if you want to engage on pass 1, then the engagement line needs to be around the 6-yard box. But next thing we're looking at is structural. How are we going to set up our defensive lines? And I tend to refer on a principle of having a minimum of 4 defensive lines. So if I just show you an example here now, we've got this set up in 4 defensive lines: striker, the midfield line, your attacking centre mid lines, your defensive lines. But the more staggered lines that you have, the better. I'll show an example here where you can see I'm passing through the lines here from midfielder to midfielder. And because that midfield line of 2 holding midfielders is quite square, they can't prevent access through. Now let's assume for a second this is slightly more staggered. We've got an additional, if you like, defensive line. There's a greater opportunity of being able to intercept passes through the lines and not be taken out or outplayed. So what I'm going to suggest to you here is you need at least 4, ideally 5, staggered defensive lines. But that doesn't mean you need to stagger every single player amongst every single line. The next key consideration for me would be the width. I like my wide players to play inside the width of the opposition's penalty area. You can see that I have the fullbacks slightly on the outside lane so that they can engage in those wide spaces a little bit quicker, but it just allows for a greater form of compactness. If you look at that midfield, we've got 5 central players here clustered together to really protect those key central access spaces. Then we need to look at the defensive line. Personal preference is to have my line as high as possible for verticality. I don't want any more than 8 to 10 meters between lines, so that if any pass gets played through and beats and outplays a certain line of mine, the second line or the next line in the progression can instantly step forward and engage. It allows you to hunt down in packs. But that doesn't mean to say that's the only way to do it. If you come across a side that plays quite direct, has a lot of pace, doesn't play through the lines quite as much, there's no right and wrong with this. You can drop your defensive line off accordingly. And within this, you need to consider the role of the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper needs to be in line with that defence. So if I'm having my defensive line right up to the halfway line, I need my goalkeeper to also reflect this and stay within a 15 to 20 metre radius at all times. If I drop my defensive line back off, then I need my goalkeeper to drop back with that defensive line. So having established what our structures are going to look like, we now need our principles of play. This is going to determine what our objectives are, how we're going to achieve it. So your objectives may well be to control the team into half a pitch in order to create ball-side superiority and you control the space. That's absolutely fine. A lot of teams take this approach. Your approach may be different. It may be that you want your strikers or your forward players to be involved in duels, to be heavy metal, to be hard, be in their face. The third may well be to set pressing traps. Allow passing lanes to be open, and once the opposition takes the bait on those pressing traps, you then overload the area. So in this first one, the first and primary player you need to do in order to control into half a pitch is to work with your number 9. For them to be able to split the pitch, they have to get their pressing technique correct. And I can't stress the importance of this enough, because pressing is like a house of cards, and if you don't get it right, it all falls to pieces. And the first player you're going to be working with is your striker. Okay, now they don't always have to come and press from the side. They can hold central ground to split the pitch. It is imperative they come round and curve from the side like this in order to take out the players who can switch the play, who are the goalkeeper and the far side centre-back. What he must also do is screen the holding midfielder as best he can at the same time. However, if he presses too straight, he doesn't take these 2 players out, and therefore they can switch the play and we don't have control. So what we need to do now is ensure we lock down the ball side holding midfielder, whether that be between the centre-backs or into the little pocket passing lanes that I'm about to show now. They're the players that are most commonly going to switch the play out to the far-sided centre-backs. If they're ahead of our line of play, like in this example, we need to press the correct shoulder that pushes them more towards the touchline. And if their central midfielders are playing in behind our second line of pressure, then we need to be able to screen well. So now consider where else can they switch the play from. So if I look in this example right now, we're locking down the central midfield, we're cutting out the centre backs. How can they still switch the play? So we need to now consider if they have a second holding midfielder or not. You can see in this example here, there is a clear passing lane through here into this central midfielder who may be able to progress the play, and it's a valuable play because it's a diagonal pass, which are the most important in football in my opinion. We need to lock down this player and prevent access. There's two ways of doing it. You can either send a central midfielder in, or in which case your formation becomes a bit more 4-1-4-1. It's not my preference. My preference is to try and bring across the wide forward. And there's multiple advantages to this. Not only are you locking him down and preventing access into their most valuable player, but you're also turning this player into an incredible commodity for the counter-attack, a real valuable player who can penetrate should we win the ball back. Now, if we're preventing them from switching the play, this is where things can start to get interesting and where you get options. Do you want to leave passing lanes open and set traps? Now, on the one hand here, you can see this half-space passing lane into this player is open, and this may appear to be a bad decision because it's a vertical pass they're playing between the lines. There's a certain risk attached to that, and that is of course true. But what is also true for this is that you can intentionally set this and turn it into your favour instantly. This is called setting a passing lane trap, and it allows for greater predictability. So you can see here, I've got between my 10 and my wide forward a little bit of an opening in a passing lane, but then as soon as the pass is taken and the opposition have taken the bait, you close in on this passing lane as quickly as possible. You can see the staggered lines again between our wide forward and our 10 and our central midfielder, centre back, and even the far side central midfielder can now absolutely close in on what we call now a pressure zone. Everybody, we've got good coverage around the back for in case the line is still broken. The wide forward can make it a 2v1 on the ball. And you can see now we should also be looking to screen access out of here, pressing in a way that we close off passing lanes. Should we be successful and win the ball back, we've got players fantastically positioned with which they can counter straight into key space in between the lines and penetrate the penalty area. You might not want to leave this passing lane open. You may want to protect it and prevent play coming through the heart of the team, and that's perfectly understandable, particularly if the team is really strong in those areas of the pitch. So you can see here the narrowness. I've got three players covering off the central passing lane, or the half-space passing lane, and we're now inviting the passing lane to play out wide into the fullback. So there's an air of predictability. There's plenty of space. It's an easy pass for the opposition, but it gives us control. It condenses the space and we'll be able to move in as soon as the pass is taken. So using ball travelling time as the trigger on the pass, we'd now seek to squeeze in. So we might want to lock down the ball side centre back again, preventing that switch of play. We may now want to protect the heart of the block. So our wide forwards curve their run so that we can't play passes into hypothetical 9s and 10s behind their line of play. We're cutting out the switch of play, and the likelihood is that they're going to play down the line. Again, predictability. So we need to try and close this area off, but we also want to create ball side supremacy. We don't want equality in this situation. We might want to use both central midfielders now in this case. We might want to create an extra player in here, both central midfielders given license to press. But if we take a look at the numbers, we are at least 5 versus 4 or 6 versus 5 in this half the football pitch. There is still an escape route for the opposition, the far side centre-back and the goalkeeper as I'm showing now. And so you need a plan for how you might want to provoke the switch of play. And I'm going to offer you two solutions here. One, we can use the far side winger and we can use ball travelling time and offer them license to come and press this centre-back. But when they do it, they have to curve their run. So as this ball comes played in here, they need to try and engage and ideally get there, first of all, so they're not arriving late. But they also need to curve just in case they do arrive a little bit late, to prevent the passing lane into the far side fullback and winger. Because otherwise, if he doesn't do his job properly and it's a straight line press like here and the access here, it's over. It's a risk to reward strategy, but it can be a worthwhile one. So that's one solution with how you might prevent the switch of play. And here is the second solution, and I've used both of these. One, you allow the pass to play into the fullback and you expect the centre-back to drop off here, and we're okay with this. We need to protect the heart of the block and prevent passes into the 9 and 10. Our 9 stays central for now, and our wide forward curves from round the back of the player to try and prevent access into the second centre-back. They may still be able to play to this ball side centre-back, and that in itself is a trap, because we've got the 9 well positioned to allow for the pass, but then he engages on ball travelling time. And hopefully now we have the opposition in complete control, where they're only really limited to playing long or into spaces that are unfavourable to them, where we can get real good pressure in and around the ball and hopefully win it back. Now, if you've got to this point, thank you very much so far for watching. I'm going to try and offer you a few bonus tips and reward you, because I know it's not easy watching 10-11 minute videos, and show you a few additional tips that you might want to consider. Tip number 1 is when you don't want the opposition to play to wingers and you need to cut off the line option and show inside, or if the opposition have weak central midfielders, I'm going to offer you a pressing trap called inside channeling. And essentially what you're going to do is allow the holding midfielder for them to come across, and your 10 plays just on the blind side but leaves enough room, dangles a carrot. You've got ball sides holding midfielder comes in here and they try and allow for this pass here, and the second that they do, you create a 2 versus 1 on it as soon as possible. If you can get a 3 versus 1 on it, fantastic, not always possible. And if your striker can get ahead of the nearest centre back, you can lock all avenues out, and it's a really nice trap. Not easy to pull off, but a good one nonetheless. And the second tip that I want to offer, this could be a centre back or a central midfielder, but you can see against one striker there's going to be times when they can drive ahead of play, and there's not a lot you can do about it. Or so it seems. There is. Even if it's a holder, what you can do is you can press from behind. Again, I refer to this as blindside pressing, where your number 9 intentionally allows them to go beyond and presses behind, so they cannot turn and they cannot switch the play. As soon as they see this on this trigger, this wide player can now curve to cut out the press. He's not worried about the fullback so much, and this central midfielder can engage as well. And this player can even come across and create a little diamond type shape, and again we're blocking all avenues out of there. They're my tips for how to press in a 4-2-3-1. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please leave your comments and feedback in the section below.